you so much for tuning in to Women in Leadership with Baltimore Corps. I'm so excited about the guest that we have today. My name is Selena Alexander. I am a public ally at Baltimore Corps. I have the distinct honor of working on the technology, media, and communications team as their program communication specialist. Let's just jump right in. I want to know, how are you guys' day going? Let the people know, who are they actually talking with today? So let's talk to the people.
So I'm DANI FAULKNER. I'm Director of Development for Baltimore Corps. I've been on staff for about two and a half years now. So far, so good. Knock on wood. Feeling okay. Healthy, mentally and physically. So I'm good.
I can go next. My name is Minda Hyman. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Baltimore Corps, and I have been at Baltimore Corps since May 2018. So I guess a little over 2.5 years at this point. I have to say, your energy is like getting me jazzed. So this is probably the highlight of my day.
Wow. Okay.
To getting to be with this exceptional group of women is always something that gives me fire. So thanks for having
HOPKINS. I'm also on the partnership team with Minda. I'm the Senior Partnership Manager, and I've been at Baltimore Corps about 1.5 years, the most recent of the three of us. Selena, I'll still remember the first time you and I talked on the phone when you were a potential candidate. And I remember even then hearing your energy, and I just thought, this is a powerhouse woman. And I was so excited to learn that you ended up getting placed at our organization for Public Allies, and really excited that we're here today as a result of all the work you and the team have been doing. So super excited to be here.
Stephanie, thank you so much for sharing that. I've been here for a little bit over a year now, and I've heard so many great things about Baltimore. Like, are you guys from here? How did you get here? How did you even get to Baltimore City?
I can start because I think I'm the only Baltimore person. I'm actually from Baltimore County, which I like to clarify because there is
a difference, right?
I grew up in Randallstown, which is pretty much just over the Baltimore city line. But my family my mother grew up in South Baltimore. My dad grew up in Liberty Heights. And so we are definitely in and of Baltimore, both Baltimore City and County. My mother loves this city, and she instilled that love of the city in all of her children. We still talk about the house she grew up in South Baltimore and the way she was raised here. And so we have a deep love for the city. Baltimore, to me, is such an incredible place. And so I'm pretty proud to be from here. We have a lot of tenacity in the city. And I feel like if you're from here, you have that East Coast energy. I actually have left and come back multiple times. I joke that if you're from Baltimore, you have like a little honing pigeon chip implanted in your neck. And so you may leave, but you always come back. It was really powerful when I moved back to Baltimore to feel like I could do something that was for my city in a way that I could show my love and commitment to all the potential that we have to be an incredible place to live, to raise a family, to really model what it means to be the city of the future.
You know what, Minda, you shared a couple good points. You said Baltimore County and Baltimore City. So is that a really big difference? What is the difference between, like, if, I live in a county or I live in a city, like what's the energy there?
You know, it's funny. I say this, I don't know, for the other, everyone else on the call has also lived in the city. I live in the city now. And in growing up, I didn't really know the distinction, to be honest, because for me, it was a very arbitrary line. And I always like to say to people that growing up, there are people who live in the city and don't leave the city. There are people that live in the county and don't leave the county. And then there are those of us who go across that line without even thinking of it. And so I grew up in a family that went into the city all the time. We were always in the city, so it didn't feel like it was a distinct thing. That being said, I think that there's a lot more wealth that exists in the county. If you look at the demographics of the city, not only from like a finance, but from a race and ethnicity background, all of that shifts quite a bit when you cross that line. And so there's often been a resource drain from the city that goes to the county. That is something that has been really problematic. So I think that's sort of the biggest thing of where resources are allocated. Baltimore is unique in that there is a Baltimore City and a Baltimore County, and they are separate counties, where that's not always the case in other places in the country. And so because of that, there is just delineation around funding and how that's allocated.
I will say from my experience, so I came over here for college. I'm from the Eastern Shore, Maryland, born and raised in Maryland, the state, but then came to Baltimore County for college. And I found at the college I was at, they advertised that, oh, we're a college in Baltimore. But when I actually digged into it and actually was living on the campus, I went to Goucher College, it's in Towson, which is very much the county. So there's this idea of, oh, you can say you're Baltimore and, in name only, but when you really get to the grit of the city, you have to go to the city. And I think if you're looking at Baltimore Corps and what we offer, we're the best of the city as far as jobs, access to fundings for small businesses, but we kind of pull everything in so you can get a little bit of everything. And then also like how you can make your impact on the city. So if you're coming from the county, if you're coming from different parts of Maryland and you're a person of color especially, and you need to find that group of people who's going to help you navigate the world that is the city, I think we're the great place to start at. And I think that in and of itself, coming from the county, only knowing the county when I was in college, and then hearing bits and pieces about Baltimore Corps, it was just kind of starting. They just started their fellowship program. I had friends who did their fellowship program. That was their ticket into the city and actually staying in the city. So I think for the county, there's definitely access that they can use if they're interested, but it's very much we're very much a city organization. And again, like I said, it's a good starting point if you want to get involved, and especially if you're a person of color and you're looking for a place to get started. So yeah.
Thank you so much for clarifying that and letting people know what they can gain, the resources that Baltimore Corps has to offer. So I wanted to kind of switch things up just a little bit. So from your perspective of a woman in leadership, what are some of the needs in the Baltimore City communities?
I feel like that's such a tricky question, and it makes me think about the idea of like all hands on deck. Because I think as a social worker and someone who's been in the city for almost 20 years now, which is kind of crazy, I've thought a lot in my career about where do I put my energy, because there are different needs. I've worked with kids, I've worked in an education context and adult literacy, workforce development. I think that there are a lot of different needs, and something that I really believe strongly in, and part of why I love working at Baltimore Corps, is I believe that every person has a piece of the puzzle that they can bring. And in our work with partnerships team is really trying to find leaders that want to bring impact and change based on their strengths and their experiences and what they bring to the table. I really believe that we're stronger together, and it kind of leads to that idea of our value of like Baltimore first, that their education is a huge issue. Food, I think that COVID has definitely brought out a lot of immediate physical challenges for our communities. Healthcare, there's a lot of things that we could talk about. At the end of the day, for me personally, I feel that it's important to empower leaders to figure out where they want to put their hands and kind of come alongside work that's already happening in Baltimore. And really this idea that equity and access for education, especially right now with virtual learning, is so critical. But at the same time, jobs and workforce and make small businesses survive is equally important, And so that's where Baltimore Corps is equipped and leveraged to be able to make impact in various areas. And that's part of what I really love about our work, is that we don't have to choose what the greatest need is. We are really equipping and empowering work that's already happening and empowering leaders to step into their part of that work.
I would just also add, we talk about women in leadership. I think that there's this mentality of, oh, well, a woman's at the table, so we're done. And I think our real focus is that first of all, not any one individual should represent all individuals, regardless of if it's, oh, well, now we have this type of woman and now that doesn't make sense. Everyone has experience and perspective and knowledge that they bring, and we want to learn and share from everyone. So it's about making sure that, to Stephanie's point of all hands on deck, all voices are at the table. And so that people feel like there's a space for their voice to be heard and their perspective, and they have the resources and megaphone to be able to lift that voice even louder to affect real change.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I just wonder, because right now, for the first time in history, we have a woman of color that is going to be our vice president of the United States. I need to know, how are you guys feeling about that? What are your thoughts? Do you even remember where you were when you heard?
I mean, I think for me, I was cautiously waiting to see if it would happen, number one, because I feel like we're all on this journey of like waiting to be happy and waiting to see if like this will happen. But it was actually my grandmother she was the one, seeing her excitement got me excited. And I think even when Vice President Harris, I can say that now, was even just a candidate for presidency, that was a big deal. Like that in and of itself, like she has a chance, like this is possible. Then when it was possible that, okay, she could be vice president, I honestly thought maybe she should wait it out. I want her to be president. I see that more for her. Even when I see the press conference now and she's like, President-elect Joe Biden, and I want her just to say I, meaning herself, because that's how I'm feeling in this sense. Like she's ready to take this on. I don't think she needs to be vice president first to be president. She is the president in my mind. So my thing is like, this is just 4 years in the waiting. She'll do what she's got to do, but she will be President Harris, in 4 years. And that's just the way it is. That's how I'm kind of taking it right now. Like, this is just a pit stop. Your real role is coming, because that's just how like excited I am about her in this position. I can't wait.
That's really powerful, Dani. Thank you so much for just your transparency there. I appreciate that.
I would 100% agree with Dani. For me, so much of it was seeing this such an impressive, talented, fearless woman, really. I mean, that's to me what's so impressive about her. For me and my family, we were all waiting to watch the vice president debates because we were like, oh, this will be fun. It does make me think about the level of standards that we have for women as opposed to what we have for men to get to any of these levels. And so I think there's that piece where a woman, in particular, a African-American woman, has to be perfection, beyond perfection, versus what a white man needs to look like in order to get to that level. That being said, one of the things that she said in her speech is the idea that, she may be the first, but she's not going to be the last. And just that moment of like, I even get chills just saying it now, of she really is leading the way for women. And I think that's beyond exciting because there's nothing unexceptional about her. She is just such a remarkable individual. And I think her fearlessness is exactly what we need to lead the way for others.
That's awesome. Stephanie, I don't know. This is such an exciting topic. I feel like everybody wants to jump in. I'll give you the chance too.
Yeah, I definitely think that something unique about us as women as a whole and women in leadership is we know we only get here because we stand on the shoulders of other women. We know other women have paved the way so that we can stand where we stand. And I think that the moment when Kamala did her acceptance speech was the moment where it finally really hit that this is really happening. And for me, I'm a mother of 2 daughters and a son, and my 12-year-old and 10-year-old daughters have been so excited this whole election at seeing, we talk a lot about that they can be president one day and they can be leaders. And we tell our son that too, that the girls will do all the things, and not limiting them by gender stereotype. But I think to actually see it happen was such a moving moment. And for me, I was so moved as she did her speech on so many levels. It was such a thoughtful and just dynamic speech, but it was such a moment in history. My family was huddled on the couch and I look over at my now 13-year-old daughter, my girls are biracial, and I look over at my 13-year-old and she's weeping. And I never would have imagined that it would have touched her in that way, but I think she sort of understood that this was history in the making and the role model that young ladies everywhere and women of all ages are watching. The glass ceiling is being shattered, doors are open, and I think that matters so much for all of us in our work at Baltimore Corps and for young women everywhere, really, to know that we can step in and take our place.
You know what? I'm looking like I'm keeping it together, but that was a teardropper for me. It really was, just to hear how you actually brought your children in, and just to see specifically your daughter, how she took it, because I remember as a kid growing up, and in elementary, you have to dress up and you're like, where do you want to be when you grow up type thing. And all the boys, I'm going to be president. And, the girls, maybe I'll be secretary or whatever. But now the tables have turned, you know? And now I feel like women, I don't want to put words in you guys' mouth, but I feel like women, we're taking our position now, rightfully so, you know? And so what effects has women in leadership had on the social justice sector within the last 10 years?
I think women have always been in leadership. It's now that it's highlighted. Like the focus is now put more on us. But I definitely think this is not a new thing now. Like, oh, no, we've always been there. We've always been behind the scenes. I think now because of social media, because of technology, people are trying to make sure like, no, are you really doing the work you say you're doing? So that I'll just start with that. Overall with social justice, working in the sector, I feel like now as a professional within it, I have to make sure what I see as quote unquote justice matches the work that I'm doing. I don't think maybe 5 years ago, I would have been that ingrained in it and be like, hey, it's a job, I'm just doing this. But now it's, if I'm choosing to be in this sector, I have to make sure that what I believe in matches the work that I'm doing. So for me personally, that's been the shift. And I want to say the last 5-7 years being in this role in this nonprofit where I've really made sure that everything's lining up, what I'm doing and then what I believe matches up.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Dani said. And I used to work in the higher education sector before coming into the nonprofit sector, into the equity and racial justice sector. I was working in higher education and career services at colleges. In fact, I worked at Goucher as my first job out of grad school. Dani knows that. And one of the reasons I wanted to leave was I felt like what we espoused as institutions was not actually what we were doing. And it was really important for me to align in that way. In the same vein, I was pretty naive in what I didn't know. And so for me now, I do agree that women have been in roles all the time and in leadership roles. They haven't been in leadership positions necessarily, but they've been in leadership roles and really leading the way. In particular for me, as of, being a part of Baltimore Corps, a lot of it is unlearning things that I thought I knew, but that I didn't really know right, and that I needed to, and continue to need to, as I feel like we all do, need to unlearn some of the narratives that we've been told, not only around women, but what, as a white woman in this space, what my responsibility and my role is, and showing up every day, all day, to consider how the work that I do impacts in a positive way in moving forward our mission and values. And that's something that requires internal work along the way. Even if I espouse my values align with the work that I do, making sure that part of that is doing the work to move closer and closer to a more equitable environment, regardless of what space I'm in.
Thank you so much for you just being honest and just really putting it out there and not being afraid to just speak up in that area. Because I just know that now we're reaching a time where we're all on the same page. We're all trying to make it. It's COVID-19 and we have the first time in history, a Black female that is going to be the Vice President of the United States. And that just should tell you that it's no reason why we should, be living in the past, old thoughts, old ways, transforming. Baltimore Corps represents that. And it represented in a way where we are bridging those gaps. We are providing jobs and opportunities where no one else is doing it. And we've been doing it. And so I'm just excited to just be a part of such a great organization that stands on racial justice and equality. And I wanted to ask you guys, because I know that you carry so many different plates that you try to balance on a daily basis, right? And those plates are simply just full with all of these responsibilities that you have to do. How do you balance your work life with home and possibly having kids and just social life? How do you do it all?
I mean, not to be that person, but the same way the men do. It has to be done. There's no other choice but to balance it all. Am I 100% in every part of my life? No. But I think now, being a 30 plus woman, I don't apologize for it. It is what it is. I do as much as I can, and I'm honest when I can. And that's just how it is. But yeah, I don't think there's anything special. It's just you have to. You just have to.
Well, you know what, Dani? I think that as a woman, we take that for granted. Women, we always just naturally step up. Is it a problem? Okay, I have a solution. And so I think that's just the natural energy of a woman and how we just naturally just step into those leadership roles. So I don't know if people really know that, but for you to share that, I'm glad that you did so.
To Dani's point, I mean, I think that there's sometimes things aren't balanced or, are out of balance. And one of the things that I'm actually pretty grateful for working for a place like Baltimore Corps is that it is a supportive environment and we work our butts off. I mean, people carry a lot of plates all the time and they're spinning with food on them. And we also set it up so that we have a wellness day every month and we are expected to take it. And so doing things like that and having supportive supervisors and teams that say, you know what, let's all pitch in to help on this, or it's time for you to take a day off or take a couple days off. That's really something that we think about from an equity lens. And as part of the partnerships team, a lot of what our team does is works with employers to build out jobs. And one of the things we're always talking about is how do you build a job that's equitable? And one of those is thinking about what benefits you offer someone, whether that's flexibility, whether that's really thinking about their wellness as a holistic element to who they are, because none of us women, I think in particular, don't compartmentalize their lives as men do as more so, although that could be a stereotype that I'm pushing forward, but really acknowledging that sometimes it's going to be out of balance, but being in an environment that really supports you as a whole person makes a huge difference, I think.
I completely agree. I was literally thinking of the word holistic, and just thinking about the fact that in order for social impact work in Baltimore to be effective, you have to think of the whole person. And I agree with Minda that Baltimore Corps does an amazing job at thinking of us in our work in holistic ways and looking at us as whole people. And I think that that's something everyone's had to learn in a pandemic with being stretched in so many ways. And everyone has their own challenges, at home and with Wi-Fi, and in some ways has caused us to be able to lean into each other as a team more. And I really appreciate that I have Minda's my supervisor, and she checks in with me regularly, not just on my work and how I'm doing, but how's your work-life balance? Are you doing okay? And I think that is critical. I think kind of going back to Dani's point of, women get it done and we just figure stuff out and you just push through. I think what I often say to especially moms and parents in general is that sometimes there is this idea that we try to do all things well. And I really appreciate what Dani said about the fact that you can't do all things perfectly. So at some point you figure out what are your priorities and how do you do the best at those things, knowing that there's no such as perfection in that. It's just how do I do the best version of bring my best version of self to what I'm doing or to the challenges of this year or this pandemic. So I feel like we've all had to learn a lot of that and lean into that. But I do think there's a lot of strength in us as women to know how to push through when things are tough. And I think that grit certainly has been tested.
I want to kind of shift it just a little bit before we wrap up. I want for you guys to just talk about your actual position. So for younger women that are inspiring to be possibly maybe in a position just as you, could you just kind of talk about your journey and how you got to your actual position? And then if you could also give them a little feedback and inspiration in how to be a woman in leadership. I just want to empower the younger women, and I want for you guys to just share with them, how did you get there? How did you get to where you are right now?
I think for me, and again, I'm now 30 plus, being ever changing and ever flexible has really been my journey's story. So when I went to college, I studied playwriting. I'm a writer by trade. That's what I love. I love the theater. And I noticed once I graduated, that doesn't pay the bills. It's not sustainable. I like being able to get guacamole at Chipotle and not feeling like I was gonna, be poor afterwards. So I found ways to help other artists create their work. And I started writing writing grants. And that is a formula that I use every day. At Baltimore Corps, I'm in charge of finding money for our budget, and our budget is almost $5 million right now. So every year we have to find that money to pay everybody's salary, to make sure all our programs are running. And a lot of what I do is writing grants to make that happen, which is what I learned in college. You know, the basic principles of storytelling. I'm telling the story of Baltimore Corps every day that I'm working. And for me and anyone who started as a theater major or a theater person, arts person, it can be hard to see where your skills can transfer. And I think some people get really locked into that. So I guess my advice to anyone younger than me would be, really think broadly about how you can take your skills and use them in different ways. I never thought I'd be working in philanthropy and fundraising. It doesn't make sense for a theater person, but when I thought about it, if you're a theater person, you have to produce your work. You have to be a producer. You have to, do marketing. You have to do those skills anyway. And this is just a different way to do it. So I definitely say, be smart about what you're studying, but really broad out. Just don't focus on one thing. You never know what's going to happen, and be flexible. Be very flexible in it. So yeah, I hope one day I go back to theater, but it definitely probably be in a fundraising capacity, because that is a very hard thing to do in any field, but definitely in theater, in the arts. So yeah.
Stephanie, did you want to turn?
Yeah, I was thinking. What I was thinking about is just that no one's path is linear. For the most part in your professional career. And I would say particularly when it comes to social impact sector. But I think my piece of advice would be start with what you know, start with what you're passionate about, and kind of knowing that you're an expert in something and there's a lot you have to offer. So I think that has served me well. And I particularly love empowering people. That has looked really differently with me working in volunteer management and all different outreach in different parts of my professional career, but at the same time, kind of knowing yourself and knowing what you bring wherever you start, and just kind of taking that next step, but knowing that what your strengths are needed to make impact in Baltimore. You are an important piece of the puzzle, and knowing that really when you bring your full self, and each of us can do that, Baltimore is stronger and our community is stronger and our families are stronger. And that's my hope and belief that I stand on and that drives me.
I would agree with what both Dani and Stephanie said a lot. I am the oldest of the crew here, and actually almost probably the oldest on Baltimore Corps' team overall. So I won't go through my whole career trajectory because, as Stephanie said, it was not linear at all. And I used to coach other people about their career trajectory. So this is something that I'm quite familiar with. And the thing that I say to other people that's easier said to other people and harder to do for yourself is take notice at every experience. It's not always about just what you enjoy doing. It's about what you're good at doing and trying to find the intersection of both of those things. It's about understanding what you value and really knowing yourself. I think one of the things at Baltimore Corps, one of our values is around lifelong learning. And I think self-awareness and self-learning is something that is critical over the course of your entire life. And part of that starts with not just your passion, but what do you value at your core? And who is that? And how do you take every experience and learn from it? I would say that, someone once said that, if you're doing the things that you love to do 51% of the time, you're lucky, because most of us have to do things as part of our role that are not our favorite things to do. But if we can lean into the things that we're both good at and we enjoy doing and find opportunities that align with who we are and what we value, then we're going to be satisfied and feel like we're making an impact. And so the more you understand who you are, what's important to you, and what you're good at in terms of your skills and your competencies, get curious about how you can apply that, because I think that curiosity allows you to ask questions. So I think a lot of times people say to college students, what do you want to do? And they say, well, this is my major. And that doesn't really tell me anything about what they want to do. Really, it's about tell me what excites you. Tell me what motivates you. Tell me something that you're really good at. And then getting curious about where can I apply that? Most of us don't wake up to Stephanie and Dani's point and say, you know what I want to be? I want to be a nonprofit administrator. Who says that? Nobody. What you might say is, I really care about kids, or I really care about this issue. and I'm really good at this. You know, we need people in the social impact sector from all different backgrounds with all different types of experiences. And so it's important to figure out how do you marry both your skills and your talents and your strengths with the types of work that you want to do, the types of environments you want to be in. And that to me is where you find true joy in the work that you do, because days are hard and we all work really hard. And so sometimes every day isn't always rewarding and gratifying, but if you know that you're working towards an ultimate goal or an ultimate purpose, then that pushes you through those difficult days that you might experience.
That's awesome. So for me, as a younger woman, I didn't know who I wanted to be or where I wanted to go in life. And so I just did what my parents told me to do. And just to hear you ladies say that own who you are, walk in it, be kind to yourself in the process, love yourself on the journey. Yeah. I'm taking notes here. It's basically what I'm doing. I'm taking notes, and Baltimore Corps needs to be excited and happy. And I know that they are, of the powerful women that they have on their team. And I'm just so excited to be a part of one of the programs that Baltimore Corps has to offer, the Public Ally Program, which is a leadership program. And I have the opportunity of interviewing such awesome women and being a part of this dynamic team. And so I just had an awesome and amazing time today. I don't know about you guys. You can come off your mic. I just had a great time just interviewing and talking with you guys, you sharing just a small piece of who you are and your roles in Baltimore Corps. And I just thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you for doing this. This is great. It was a great opportunity to talk through some stuff.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Selena. Most of us go through it in sort of with the lights off. And, you know, it's fun to switch the light on and realize that you have this whole network of individuals who are there to plug into, because I think that curiosity and getting to connect and hearing Stefanie and Dani's stories and your story, I think is really powerful, of telling a whole sort of weaving it all together is to me what's so powerful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that this has been so inspiring, just hearing from the other ladies. Sometimes, to Minda's point, the work is hard and we kind of, just keep pushing through some days, some weeks, some years, and remember that we also stand on the shoulders of many who have gone before us, and that we are also paving the way for others to stand on our shoulders too. It was just really a sweet time for us to be able to kind of celebrate, and just thank you so much for inviting each of us.
You are so welcome. I'm just honored to be here. If women out there in the world want to get in contact with you ladies, how can they do that?
All of our emails are actually on the website. So if you go under, and I cannot directly guide you to where it is on the website, but if you look at the staff of Baltimore Corps, you'll see our pictures, so you don't have to guess. Like, I don't remember her name, and we'll get you. You can send us emails directly.
And LinkedIn, I think we all have a LinkedIn profile, so you can definitely find us there. I usually answer. Yeah, I'm really good at answering messages from that if you can. So that's another.
I like how you had to think about that, Dani.
I was like, yes, I do. I'm claiming it.
We are definitely on LinkedIn, so you can reach us there too. Good call.
Awesome. This is a wrap. Thank you so much for tuning in again to Women in Leadership with Baltimore Corps. Until next time, we'll see you again. Bye.